We have had rapid transitions of our economic systems before because of social movements when people did not think that they were possible. This church has some history I've heard about with slavery. There's the Underground Railroad used to run right through here. It seems now, in hindsight, like of course we would abolish slavery. Of course it is wrong to own another human being. But that was not just a practice that we did here in America, or that was brought over from Europe, but a practice that went back generation upon generation upon generation upon generation for millennia. A practice that was part of human society, that was written into the Bible. And yet, good people of conscience, like all of you here in this room, were able to look around at their environment and recognize that even though it was accepted behavior for millennia, it was no longer acceptable today. And social movements ended slavery in a legalized form across every single nation. We can do that again. Instead of the concept that no human being should own another human being, we need to get at the concept that no human being should die for another human being to have energy. That's what our movement is all about. That when you turn on the lights, when you wake up in the morning, or you turn on your computer, that you should not have to sacrifice another human soul for you to go about your day. Because that's what we're doing right now. And that is not okay. But we can make that shift. We did fight a civil war over it in this country, as some have pointed out. But in every other nation, there were no civil wars about it. It was a social movement and the social movement alone that won it. In other nations, even within our own nation, the Civil War only came about because there's an incredibly powerful social movement that pushed it to the center of the national dialogue. And yes, it's going to be a heavy lift to try to transition our economy at the speed that we need to transition it at. But we've done that before as well. In World War II, when we rapidly switched our economy from a peaceful civilian-based economy to a wartime economy in a matter of months. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, our army was rated as weaker than Poland's. And it took Germany 3 weeks to invade and occupy the entire nation of Poland. And their military was supposed to have been superior to ours. In 1940, we had this nascent aircraft industry, and we had produced a whopping total of 4,000 aircraft. As you all probably know, in 1941, in December, we were bombed in Pearl Harbor. And shortly after that, President Roosevelt took to the national airwaves and set what many thought were very aggressive, ambitious, and unrealistic goals, saying that we were going to not only take on Nazi Germany, but also Imperial Japan, to make the world safe for democracy. And to do this, we were going to build 60,000 aircraft. And we had, again, previous year had only built 4,000. And a lot of people heard this goal and thought it was an overly aggressive target, overly ambitious. We would never hit it. But they understood the wisdom of it, because if you set really high goals, you may not fully hit them, but at least you'll be a lot higher than you would have been if you didn't try, right? So maybe we want to get 60,000, but maybe we get 30,000 or 15,000 or 35,000 if we're lucky, right? And set similarly ambitious targets for armored vehicles and for tanks. And from when he made that speech in the beginning of 1942 until the end of 1944, our nation produced not 4,000, not 60,000, but but 216,600 aircraft. We entirely shifted over from a civilian economy that was making cars and these new electronic gadgets for folks into a wartime economy that was making weapons of war. Corset manufacturers started making gun belts. Merry-go-round manufacturers started making gun turrets. Toy manufacturers started making bullets. The automobile industry stopped making cars. For a couple of years, we just didn't make any new civilian cars. We did okay with that. And instead, they made airplane engines, armored vehicles for the military, and tanks. And we defeated the twin forces of Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany over a couple of years. A couple of short years. That's what we have to do here. That's what we can do here. Except the great thing is that instead of building weapons of war that are designed to kill people, we get to build wind turbines and solar panels and go to every single house within our own nation, every single building within our nation, and gut it out and improve the insulation to do things that are going to make our communities healthier, our air cleaner, our water cleaner, and save human civilization in the process. Why would we not do that? It's not going to be easy. And there's probably some folks out there who are thinking that that's just a big idealistic vision that will never come to fruition. And you might well be right. But I hope for all of our sakes that you're wrong. Because that's what we need to do. And for every person who gives up on that vision to say, that's not possible, I'm not going to work for it, you're helping to put nails in that coffin to make sure that vision does not come to be. A lot of you might be thinking, this isn't my fight. I didn't think it was my fight. I studied international relations in college. I was supposed to go to Asia or to Latin America or to Africa to help lift people out of poverty, to improve democratic institutions and improve human rights around the world. That was my vision for my life. But I realized that all of those things that I care about and hold true and hold dear, that if we did not meaningfully address the climate crisis, any work I would hope to do would be irrelevant if we did not have stable supplies of food and water to provide for our civilization. We've been burning fossil fuels for about 150 years. Most of the people alive during that time had no idea that they were contributing to the collective demise of our civilization as they were burning those fuels. It's only within the past couple of decades that we've got an increasingly strong understanding of just how damaging our behavior is. And across those who are alive right now, the majority of the human population lives either in a country where their political views are not represented by their government and they have little to no chance of changing their government's policies, or their countries are so poor and so geopolitically insignificant that they are contributing so little to the problem of climate change that even if they drop their emissions to zero, it wouldn't mean a darn thing. Because they're not the part of the problem, but they are suffering its results and those consequences. And a lot of people in the world live in both of those countries, or they have no hope of changing their government, and even if they did change their government, it wouldn't matter because their government is not causing the problem. All of us in this room have the honor, the privilege, and the responsibility of living in a country where our political views are actually valued. And yes, we have a corrupt government. There's a lot of corruption and inertia in the system. But at the end of the day, I can stand up here and talk to all of you without fear of being tortured or killed, or having my family members being tortured or killed for speaking out about something I believe in, and for calling on the government to do more than they're doing. A lot of humanity does not have that privilege. And not only do we all have that privilege here, but we have that privilege in a world, in a country, that is the most powerful nation on the planet and arguably the most powerful nation in human history, where the decisions we make as a nation will define humanity for 1,000 years and longer. You may not want this responsibility. I didn't particularly want this responsibility, but we share it. We all share it. Because among those 300 million Americans out there, the vast majority have absolutely no idea how bad things could get. No idea. Because our government and our media has failed to communicate what is at stake here. This is our fight. And we need to pour everything we have into it. I encourage you to really think about what it is that you love in this world and how much you're willing to sacrifice for it. How much of your time, how much of your sweat and your tears, and how many good friends you're going to be able to make, and that sense of camaraderie and love that you'll feel. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I look forward to working with you all.